Welcome to the Advanced Investor Alliance podcast, where investors achieve their full potential through real and authentic content. This podcast is to inspire you to go beyond the mediocre results of the masses.
You know, Zach, you did a really good job on that introduction. Every time I hear that, I get kind of juicy.
I'm telling you.
Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family all around the world of this thing called Podcast International. And you tuned into the Advanced Investor Alliance with my co-host,
Zach Lorenzen.
Hey, we're getting really good at this. So, man, we had a fire meeting. What do you think?
It was awesome. Good
I think we're
turnout.
getting our mojo.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I talk too much, so we're trying not to do that today.
All the time.
But I do appreciate Crystal because she does know how to close it and open the meeting with concise, with actionable steps. Like, what do you do when this happens? So I love that. So today's episode, we're going to kind of spend about 15, 20 minutes, no more than that, on, we think, one of the most creative deals that has graced our desk. And Zach, you were with me pretty much through the whole thing. So I'll preface it. Do you have any words to say there? Because I'm trying not to say anything.
I think we're good right now.
Okay. So just real fast, this is an incredible deal because we hit every creative aspect of a transaction, real estate, and it's very accepting in the commercial world. You know, what the one big point I think people get confused about, can you owner finance? Can you assume loans? Yes. But it's much easier in commercial. And there's a lot of reasons why. And we're going to dive in a few of those. I know Zach has some awesome questions about the creativity of the transaction. Like why did you do that? And where did this go? But let me just outline the whole transaction. This is a real transaction that closed back in November 29th in Oklahoma City. It is a 7,000 square foot metal building that was erected to be a wedding facility. So this is a unique building / business. So we got two entities here. We have a building, 7,000 square foot, with a ton of bathrooms in it and a bridal suite and all the fun
Chapel,
wedding
all that.
BS for them. And then there's a business called the wedding facility that brings in cash flow. So here's the quick numbers. Number one, it was appraised for 1.6. It was under contract for 1.3 million. A carry back of 300,000. That's the creative financing called owner financed or carry back. The actual bank loan was 1.1 million. So if you did the quick math there, hey, you got a carry back for 3, you borrowed 1. Yep, that's right. We got cash at closing. So technically this was a no money down deal, and we received proceeds of 100,000, and we got the sale recorded at $700,000 because of tax purposes. And we did a cost segregation on this facility, which brought in another $200,000 of accelerated depreciation because we bought it last year in 2022, November. And I also used 1031 into the deal, but that's a whole other bunch of drama. But here's the deal. It created an instant $500,000 worth of equity and monthly cash flow for the real estate investor. Can I get a whoop whoop?
Amen.
Oh, wrong one. Sorry. That's my little button. So
Going rogue.
You listen, you got to get excited. You know, Lorenzen, you know,
I'm just trying to keep up.
well, we got notes written down. How do you not keep up with those notes?
People that know you
All right.
know what I'm saying.
So this is the point of this whole podcast. This is what AIA does, Advanced Investor Alliance, is that we break down deals after they're done, before they're done, the process of them, and we help each other to get through this deal. And this deal, one of our AIA members, Zach, helped me with this deal. So we're going to kind of break it down, the process, all the things. And of course, we don't want to steal the thunder from the meeting. The meeting, we went over this for about 30 minutes. We're just going to do broad strokes today.
Yeah, we could have took a couple hours going over it.
No, several people have asked me, hey, how do I get a copy of that? Yes, there is a copy of it. It's open to our members. So not to be a douche, that's just what it is. You know, show up to the meeting and then you can get all the juices. If you can't make the meeting and you're a member, that's cool. You still get all the juices. You just got to go pick the fruit and download it from our membership site. You can go to advancedinvestoralliance.com, and that's where it's at. So if you're asking. So I think it's really cool, right? So let's go into a couple of the basics. Negotiating. No, go ahead.
First off, on this, if this came across your desk and the business was not included, would that have been a deal for you?
Good question.
Would you have gone any further with it?
No, probably not. First of all, how I heard about the deal was a friend of mine was actually trying to purchase this. A friend of mine, he already owns several businesses. He's a very creative guy. Have done several no money down deals, and I've been a part of those deals with him. And it just makes sense for him to own a wedding facility. I had no desire to own the business, so I actually was not involved, or wanted to even talk about this deal because, one, you can't buy the building for $1.2 million. You couldn't really rent it out by itself. It's an owner-occupied acquisition.
What do you think you could have built that for?
Good question. So 7,000 square foot on an average on a metal building. Now these trimmings were pretty legit. I would say $125 a square foot. Probably in today's market, with everyone's taking advantage and are deflated $1. I mean, it would probably be a little bit more.
So
but $875. So it was $500,000 more than I was willing to pay. Plus, you always want to buy commercial real estate less than what it takes to build it, because your insurance cost.
So you don't think they would have come anywhere near that number?
No. What happened was the sellers were two people. It was a guy that actually built the building, and then there was a gal that owned the wedding facility, and they owned it together. So this was a business partnership that went sour. It was two people that got together. Hey, I can build a building, you can run it. And after 5 years, these folks just didn't get along anymore. One,
Gotcha.
of course, always, and there's a friend of ours that doesn't like partnerships. Who is that? But the point is, relationships happen, and people don't see each other's value, right? Mm-hmm. She's probably working her tail off, working all these weddings, and he probably built the building and thinks he deserves more than he did, whatever.
Or one of them could have had a financial hardship, needed cash or something too.
Well, I just think the guy, because I had a lot of dealings with him. So anyway, we'll get into him in a minute. But so my friend tried to buy this building. This is how I got the deal. I think that's the biggest question. How do you get these deals? Well, you get these deals by being authentic and helping people and being genuine. And that's one of the reasons why we have this organization, is like deals are going to fall in our lap because one of our members can't close it for some weird reason, or they want a JV, joint venture. So this is just me loving on a guy for 10, 20 years, and he could not get financing on it because he did not have the net worth. The bank liked him and enjoyed doing business with him. He's borrowed money from this bank prior, but he didn't have the net worth to carry, CapEx experience on a, $1.6 million acquisition. So he called me. He reeled me in. So then I started helping him do the deal, and we negotiated. I got it under contract with him. Got the carry back, and then got the bank funding, and that's where we're at on those side of things. So that's how I got the deal. Mm-hmm. But where Zach came in, where it was really difficult for me, was I was excited about my friend getting the business, but what I realized, helping him get his financials together, helping him, operate businesses in the past. And I really don't want to be involved in micromanaging my buddy about running a wedding facility. And it was like, I could see that we would be bouncing heads. And I just know this from after the closing, because the conversations of the $100,000 that we received at closing, he wanted that whole money. I was like, dude, you can't, that's just not how it works. Like, you got to have a plan. You got to have a goal. You're dealing with a $1.6 million asset that can burn to the ground tomorrow, and you might need to pay people. You might need to refund all the deposits that you've already collected. I mean, there's a nuance. Real estate is wonderful in itself. You put real estate in a box, it's bomb. It's a great vehicle for you to be wealthy. When you get into business ownership, Zach has figured it out real quick. It is a whole ball of wax.
Oh, yeah.
Personalities, payroll, the government, taxes, bookkeeping, sales, marketing, blah,
trusting,
blah, blah.
verifying.
Yeah. I mean, I think hiring is one of the biggest. I don't know. It's just, that's another subject. Maybe we should do that some other day. But so, okay, what's the questions now? So you could do this. It's commercial. So the first thing was, the question would be, what, Zach? I don't want to talk for you. I put you on the spot.
No.
Why'd you split it up from two businesses?
Yeah,
Let's talk about greed. Let's talk about greed.
There you go.
Greed is a good thing because greed is evident everywhere. Even me, Mr. People think that I'm some perfect guy, but I really did have a taste of greed when I got it. Oh man, I was like, bro, how much does this thing make? It grosses $50,000 a month. He nets 15 to 20.
Amazing.
I'm gonna own the real estate, do a lease back, and then I'm gonna own a wedding facility. But for you to own a business, you're going to have to kind of participate. Mm-hmm. And to own a business, you're really going to have to do a job and participate with this person. And could I really commit to being a partner? Personally, no. But see, I was driven by my first inclination the very first thought was, bro, you can do this. Let me help you. So I helped him, coached him on the financials, coached him on how to communicate to the bank, coached him on how to negotiate with the seller. All those things worked out great until he got a no. And then if he got a no, I was like teaching him how to do private money. So then the only opportunity was left for me was, man, I'm going to be forced to be in a partnership with him. And that's where I really struggled. It actually took me a long time to figure that one piece of the puzzle.
Why did you feel forced?
Because it came with it. Because I knew the building by itself wouldn't sustain.
Gotcha.
To make this acquisition work, you needed cash flow. It's in the middle of nowhere. So it's a town of 10 acres, about 20, 30 minutes just north of Oklahoma City.
So you knew you'd make money on it. You just had to figure out creatively how to structure the deal to be able to make it worth your while.
Yeah. And so that's the hardest part was, how to structure the deal because, again, the greed just kept coming in. My flesh was like, oh, I acquired another asset. Bing, bing. Oh, I own a business that I own everything. But then I realized, man, the contingency plans were how does this, what if this gal that runs it doesn't work? Do we have a system in place? I would be distracted. And one big thing that I've tried to help other people is like, man, whatever you focus on, everything else fails. Mm-hmm. Just even my relationships with my friends, days could go by. And because I am focused on something else, I'm not nurturing something else.
Doesn't call or text.
Yeah, it's my fault.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but it's just true.
When you say creative deal, a lot of people think, how did you learn? Like this one, you contracted it for 1.3, carried back 300, financed 1.1, took cash, recorded it for 700, did a cost seg on it. Mm-hmm. All those, my question is, did you read all this out of a book somewhere? Is it from relationships where other people have done it, people you've coached through it? How did you come up
all the
with
above?
All of these?
I started out my journey with creative financing. So when I started in 1999, I had no money. I had no options. I just read Rich Dad Poor Dad, buy assets. And so it said, and I read another great, wonderful book called Buy Nothing Down by Robert G. Allen, which is a phenomenal book. And I just been using those techniques for 20 something years. So it's just natural for me. And it's just fun to try to do everything. My last 30 transactions in the last 3 to 4 years have always been no money down. And so that's kind of like my goal in general. But now, cash flow is coming in and, I think of things a little bit differently, parking money and assets. So that may not be my ultimate goal anymore, but I just try to do it. The carryback was really interesting because they knew. So I'll give you some more information. This deal was probably 8 to 12 months in process. Like
it was a while,
a long time. Mm-hmm. My friend brought this to me that these people wanted to sell. And so 12 months ago, 8 months before the transaction actually occurred, I was like, hey man, slow roll them, start asking them for financials, try to get to the, when you're really negotiating, find out what's the heart of the reasoning, why they're selling. But the business, if it's so successful and it's cash flowing, why would you sell an asset that makes money? That literally doesn't make sense to me in reality. Mm-hmm. Now, as I'm older, sometimes I dump assets just to do other acquisitions. But in this case, these people were disgruntled. They didn't like each other. I don't even think they wanted to be around each other anymore, which is kind of a sad ordeal. But we put some light pressure every month. Now, of course, when the cash flow comes in, they do 3 weddings. An average wedding's $12,000. They made $36,000 in gross revenue. And they probably only paid $20,000 in expenses, maybe less. And they walk away with 12. And you give 6 G's to somebody, and I take 6 G's. The pain kind of just dissipates at that time.
Yeah.
So I was trying to teach him, bro, you got to kind of like, it's called the push and pull method. You got to kind of talk to him a little about it. And then, in real negotiating is you ask for something, and then someone should always ask. So if I ask you to lower that bike down to 500, the rebuttal is, okay, I'm going to keep the pedals. Or you give and you take, right? You give and you take. You got to make the other person feel like they won. So we did this for about 3 to 5 months, and then they finally started. And this seller had no financials. They ran their whole business on their point of sale, which is how they kind of their CRM. So their taxes, I made them get the tax returns. They were like lies, like they didn't even record anything. So the great thing about commercial is everything is based on documentation. I think you need to take notes there, because when they do a valuation on this thing called cap rate, and you valuate a property based on cap rate, and that cap rate has to be backed up by documentation. What does that mean? What is the real rent roll? And if you wanted to be real savvy, you verify that rent roll, because anyone can manufacture a rent roll or a pro forma, but you have to verify that with taxes. Now, usually smaller deals, $2.5 million and below, everybody has jacked up financials. But when you're buying $10 million and above apartments that I'm involved in, I see their tax returns and they measure.
So on this building here, buying the real estate, I say it's straightforward, but it's more to it. Due diligence, finding your lender, blah, 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 right? You're buying a shell. Yep. So when you're buying that business, especially with this one, weddings, you usually put a down payment for a wedding and all that stuff. How do you verify, hey, do you have 12 weddings that happen in the next 3 months?
Excellent.
And where's the down payments to that? Did they think they were just going to pocket it and run, or
great question, Mr. Lorenzen.
The business?
Great question. So again, this is a separate thing. This is a separate entity called a business. And so I would definitely, you asked me earlier, yes, I have read several books. And if you do want to know more about how to buy a business, there's a couple of awesome books that I have read that have really helped me about due diligence on that side. So yes, we requested access to their point of sale where they maintain this money. And this is how ignorant the seller was. When we ran the numbers, they had over $150,000 of deposits that they've received that they spent. Okay, that's why you should have an escrow account, just FYI. But the reality was, when I stepped in and started negotiating, I let them know. Now, I didn't after I got it under contract. Okay, so I was like, hey, remember, you're going to have to pay us the $150,000 in deposits, and they didn't realize that, seriously, and they almost pissed their pants.
So it's kind of like assigning your rents or deposits when you buy a rental property.
Exactly. And that's called accounts receivable. You can actually, just a little business tip, you can actually borrow money on accounts receivable. And what accounts receivable is money that's due me. For example, if I did a bike trip and I invoiced everybody, they should be paying me $100 for every 5 guys. That's $500 in receivables. But I need money today. I can go down to the bank, show these invoices to the bank, and they're going to loan me $200 on my $500 receivables. So just if you're ever going to own a business, you can actually borrow money on your receivables. In this case, which is really interesting, we started really getting it under contract in August. We started doing this stuff during the summer, which is the highlight of their wedding season. They didn't want to lose the revenue, so they pushed the closing all the way to the end of November, because December, January is their slowest season. No revenue. No one gets married.
Makes sense. Smart on their end.
No, they couldn't pay. It wasn't smart. They didn't realize they'd have to owe that money.
Gotcha.
But see, the whole time when I'm negotiating, I knew that they would have 100 deposit, because we got into their software prior. And I knew that they had at least $100,000 that they would have to be giving us a credit at closing on the title company. Even my buddy that was with the transaction, I was like, no, that's going to be a line item because that's the bride's money. Yeah. And we have to honor that when we take over this acquisition, this building. they must have a wedding here.
Something
or we're
they
going to be on News
cancel.
9.
Yeah, you're out of pocket on that deposit if you didn't get it at the closing.
Yeah, so this was a very interesting. There's a lot of business savvy in there, and just a basic real estate thing. And I was really nervous about getting the loan with the bank. And the question there is, well, how did that play out with the business?
Did you always plan on getting a loan, or were you going to try to do hard money or private money?
Well, sometimes I get lazy. I always do both. I always keep my private money working. Like I try to talk to people about private money, loan private money, borrow private money. So I always have that on the back burner. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I knew I could do this acquisition, I contacted the bank. Gotcha. As a backup. I'll always, because the bank will burn me and I'll have private money in the background. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing, when I went to the bank, they took the deal. It was easy. It was very fortunate. I had a relationship with this bank. But the problem was I was scared to death they were going to want financials on the business. But see, my net worth and my experience in real estate trumped that business. They didn't really care about that business. Gotcha. But I was really nervous that they were going to be like, there's going to be and I just like, nope, I don't own the business. I sold the business to the dude. Mm-hmm. This is what I said. And in my mind, my friend that brought me this transaction, he owns the business. So mm-hmm. it's like we're 50-50, but we're not. So we can get into the breakdown of how that all works out. But the reality is like, let's get into this whole thing about the business aspect. I was struggling because the only way that I could figure out this transaction was to be in partnership with this guy and own a wedding facility. Mm-hmm. My flesh, my greed was like, yeah, another $2,000 a month business. How savvy can you be, party people? And then the more and more I thought about it, liability, a bride slips and falls. That attracts to me. All these things that played out in my mind. And then so I finally had to go outside of my circle. I had some really good friends of mine, some people that actually would have loaned me the money. I did go seek one of my private lenders, and he didn't like the deal. He's like, partnership with this guy. He does. Why can't he do the deal? What's his net worth? And he was really just beating me up on the partner. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, these are great points. So I went through two people that really gave me a way to structure the deal that was very creative and how to kind of make this work. Make the guy sign a agreement that says if you mess up, you deed it over to me. If you have to have life insurance based on you, because if the dude did die, his mother-in-law would have the place. And was she business savvy? No. Yeah. I don't know. But so eventually I hired a guy out of New York, which is a coach that I've hired before, which I thought was the best $250 an hour on the planet. First of all, the guy was really weird when I reached out to him, because I used to have a monthly contract with him. And then like a year later, I'm like, hey, by the way, sir, would you mind, advising me on this transaction? And the guy was like, who are you? No, he's like, I normally don't do this, but sure. I was like, how? He's like, $250 for the hour. I was like, okay. And he made me prepay, which is another effing frustrating thing. Cause like, dude, okay, I'm a coach too. I get it. Sure. I'll pay you $250. and then he doesn't take credit cards. It's like, what? Okay.
How old is this guy?
He's old. Okay. He's like in his 80s.
Makes sense.
But he's a baller, though.
Fax over or something?
Yeah. Eventually, like 6 days later, he got my check. But now he met with me prior during this time. And things that he said to me were awesome. And we worked out a way how to structure the deal. So to answer your original question, no, it was not Steve Van Kellenberg reading 100 books and talking to 100 friends. I actually sought advisement, and I hired an attorney too. That's another. I forgot about that $1,200 fee.
Yeah. That's a big process.
Yeah, I need to add that in there. I'm a lawyer. But so anyway, so that's how that all. Okay, I'm lost now. So now it's the Lorenzen show.
Well, why don't you break down? We've got what are the parades contracted, recorded, and all that stuff. So let's break down the benefits. What are you making per month off of it? How does the option contract that you came up with?
Okay,
all that stuff.
Great. So, this is a difficult transaction because my buddy's involved, right? I mean, it's a close friend of mine. I want him to do well, but he didn't have the net worth. But I knew he had a cash flow business coming in. I knew with my own due diligence, again, their financials from their business was whack, not organized, not paying people. I mean, it was just weird. So, but
from the sellers.
Okay. So the due diligence that I did, I figured worst case scenario, you're making between $10,000 and $15,000 a month, net. And so what your mortgage payment could afford And what can you pay me for all the time and energy that I invested in it? That was my hardest part. So I like that I broke the deal out through some friends, keeping it separate. So I was like, well, if I flip this business, how much would I want to have made? Well, the business makes $40,000 gross. I'm assuming the valuation of the business, and I think this is a critical part. How much is the business worth? I know from selling businesses, I'm assuming this business is worth at least $500,000 to $700,000 because it throws off gross revenue of these numbers. Now, these weren't tight; these were loose numbers. So I was like, he brought me the deal. I'm like, I think for my pulling this together, $200,000 fee for me to. This is what I want, and this broke down to how much do I really want to make a month? I really want to make $2,000 a month. I know that's a weird number. One of my friends, he beats me up all the time on this number. You think too small. I'm like, you are right, but I'm still small. No, you're dumb. You're right. But right. So it's 2,000. I mean, 200,000. And then I was like, on this real estate, this negotiating, because I can't remember what they started with, but damn, it's 1.6. I beat them down, owner carry. So I was like $300,000 for that aspect. Or whatever. I just said 200 first, 300. So 500. So that's what. So I was like, okay, my equity position in my mind is worth 500,000 to put this deal together to do it. Now he took the burden. Now the whole operation, he took the carryback burden. So right now, the owner operator, he's got $300,000 on him, the liability. On my liability, that's one good savvy thing. I'm not on that document. And here's the sad thing. This is a true story. It's not recorded anywhere. If he defaults on that, okay. It's like he defaults. So he's taking the liability of 300. I'm taking the liability of 1.1 million. So I think that's a fair. And like, I was like really thinking about it, man. I was like, how do I want to make some money. So this is how I structured the deal. I was like a 5-year basically option contract, a true option contract, not a creative option contract. Basically, he pays the mortgage payment, whatever that number is, because in 3 years it could change, and especially in this economy. So my documents are very clear from an attorney that states he pays this number, and he pays me a management fee for the first year of $1,000 a month. So I'm technically today cash flowing $1,000 a month, operating this business.
And it's only 1,000, so he's got time to.
Yeah, he's got money. He's already put
transition and
he had $100,000 seed money. Remember, this guy got a business with no effing money down, $100,000 in the bank, and he's cash flowing every day. That guy should write a book. I think he's a little bit big. I'm taking. I mean, hey, that's why people are like, well, 500,000.
Who's a savvy somebody here?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I coached him, so that's the problem. So he has a carrot in front of his cart that if he performs well, and these are conversations I've had with him. If you perform well, get your ship in shape, stabilize this asset, get your financials ready, not do TurboTax anymore. Like, stop doing TurboTax. Like, get an accountant,
hire a bookkeeper,
get the shit right, dude. Like, you could cash me out. I would like 3 years, but I know that's going to be impossible because it's going to take him a year to get it functional.
Stabilize, yeah.
Now, he's making money from Jump Street, so he can get real lazy here. So I put a 5-year option in there, and he has to buy me out at $1.6 million in 5 years. And then I gave him an option to renew for another X amount, I think 2 more years. He has to pay $10,000 to renew that in 5 years. So he's still, the great thing is, now he can leave tomorrow. One quick question someone said in the meeting, whoever that was smart. What if it fails? Excellent. I guess the Van Callenberg family is going to move on into the wedding facility. I really, that was one of my mentors was like, what if COVID hits again and no one gets married? What if someone gets food poisoning? These are really legitimate questions. Well, it's 10 acres in a rural town. I could probably live there and mountain bike there. So I'm pretty excited. I could sell my house and
Farmer Steve.
Farmer Bob. Or I could turn it into, the other one is I'm very privy to the cannabis industry and I know enough cannabis people. I figured I could figure that out in some form or fashion. So that's where the highest risk was. So this guy on his side, so this is a super win-win, right? I mean, he gets a cash flowing business with no money down. Now it's sweat equity. He has a $300,000 carryback that is basically contributed to the asset. So it's going to work out really well, hopefully. And if it doesn't in 5 years, the great thing for me is I get accelerated depreciation. I got $200,000. We're reading that book right now called
Tax-Free Wealth.
There you go, from Tom Wheelwright. It's coming up April 19th at 11:30 here in Oklahoma City, or on Zoom. We're going over that book. But he says in chapter depreciation, number 5 or 7. Did you get to that chapter yet?
I'm on 4.
There you go, slow. Anyway, so that's the whole deal. And, it works for him. It works for me. I was able to 1031 $200,000 into the transaction. I'm still dealing with that deal. We went over this whole deal.
So
if you remember, you can get all the details. Yeah. What other questions do you have?
I think we covered them all. I mean, between class and here.
Yes. And this is what AIA is about. So this podcast is really just kind of give you kind of an insight. Now we're a little bit more detailed and a lot more not talking about emotions, because I think a lot of this podcast was based on emotions. But I think it's important you as an investor to really get the nuance of the deal. And I was talking to an investor the other day. They're very smart at analyzing deals. They were a wholesaler for many years and have done over 200 something transactions. This guy is super smart as an investor. He knows how to analyze a deal. But sometimes you're going to have to take 2 or 3 steps back to get the whole scope, because especially in commercial, it's not what it always seems to be. There's ways that you can do carrybacks, owner finance, delayed payments. There's just 100 ways to do. There's no perfect way to do a commercial deal. Yes, in single family, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
But that's why I love commercial. And that's why we need groups like Advanced Investor Alliance. We need people that have way more knowledge than me. You may listen to this podcast and you may think I'm someone special. Let me tell you something. Dude, I am no different than you are. I was scared 5 years ago to get in commercial. Someone asked me that the other day. Somebody that came to the meeting asked me this exact question. Well, how'd you learn it? It was kind of a funny question. And I was like, was there an association you joined? Was there a class that you took? And my mind was like, listen, ding dong. What the F? That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is how I learned it.
Jump in. Just take action.
You just become a member, and you really. I think that boils down to, Zach, is that people are just not committed, and it's a long game.
Yeah.
How long have we been members of groups that the first year doesn't yield? I remember I joined this commercial real estate group. No one knew me from Adam. It's taken me 3 years later. People remember my name, and I'm not nobody.
Yeah.
And if you just look at it like. I think that, I'm listening to the Unscripted book right now, is that we pay this money and we should automatically have success. We're automatically a YouTube influencer because we got lucky because we dropped our pants and someone videotaped it. And now I got 3 million views. Now I'm successful. Now I'm a YouTube star. That's just not how it works in society today. It's called hard work. It's called doing things like going to meetups at 7 o'clock at night and actually missing a game from my daughter. So I know that this quarterly meeting, or driving over to Northwest Oklahoma City to come to a book club, and you never know, someone could be in that building, and it doesn't always yield. But this deal that I have changed my family's trajectory for life. I own a building that will depreciate out. It will bring me $500,000 someday, we hope.
Yep.
All because I was faithful. And I was also genuinely helping that guy in the beginning. I never intended to take this deal. He was just a guy that was comfortable with me, trusted me. We've done several deals together. I had zero interest in his deal. I never wanted to take his deal. I tried to help him with the loan. I tried to talk to the bank and help him with them. He just did not have the high net worth. Sometimes you have to, and that's why I think our group is going to be powerful.
Yeah. There's
going to be some people in our group that don't know how to do a deal, and they come across an awesome strip center. And how do you finance it? And why can't we all do it together? Why can't we all, if it's $1 million deal, why can't we all, 20 of us put in 50,000? 40 of us, I think I can scrape up $25,000 tomorrow. I know you could. You know enough friends that you have an IRA. You can do a big investment out of your IRA.
Yep.
But we're limited because we think it's beyond us, or we can't do it, or we're not smart enough, or we have to read the right book, right? There is no right book. I think it really boils down to action and getting around the right people. You can go to other club meetings, and after 2 or 3 of them, and they're pitching stuff or they're trying to get you to do stuff and you know in your heart it's not genuine, then that's not the group you need to be in. You should, I love it when I sell my day job right now is selling accounting services. And, it's about true authenticity. It's like, yo, go check other accountants out. If they're going to slide under the table and, do something that makes you comfortable. You want to save money on your taxes because you think you can do this. That's fine. And our company doesn't do that. That's okay. You got to do your due diligence.
Yeah. Find what fits.
What works for you. So is that it there, Zach?
Yeah, we went over a couple other deals, but I don't know if we have time for that on this podcast.
Probably not, but we'll every month we go over at least 3 deals. So this month we went over these 3 deals. We went over the Guthrie deal and we went over a Family Dollar deal. So those are 2 major deals that we did real briefly. And then we spent about 30 minutes on this deal.
And if somebody has a deal they want us to go over with everybody,
absolutely
let somebody know.
Or even if you're a broker and you're listening to this and you have a deal for sale, boom, that'd be a really good podcast idea. Hey, if that's a good idea for you, maybe Zach and I can just spend a lot more time together just going over deals. What does it look like? Why? Would I buy it or not? That leads me to another thing, Zach. Remember, let's talk about.
Here we go.
You I've never seen your body language change. I never seen sweat on your brow until you were going to do an LOI letter.
I don't know if we were going all the way to the LOI on this one. Everybody thought I was ready to write a check at the meeting.
Were,
I don't know
dude.
if it was that.
You were.
It was to figure out if we should do an LOI on it, which found out real quick because of
the
networking.
Seller. Yeah.
And people I know that it was not even close. So
yeah, it was just real quick.
Shady.
It was a deal a year ago that came on my desk for $950,000 for a strip center. And I was very interested in is in Moore, Oklahoma. It's a phenomenal growing path of progress area. It's a no-brainer. I could never get traction with the seller. The seller would come back and say, well, I really want to trade for single family. And I was like, again, this is another creative thing about commercial real estate. It's not everyone needs a solution. And what's their solution? Maybe they're trying to avoid taxes. Maybe they had a lien on this property. God only knows what this gal was thinking. But I submitted to her $2 million worth of properties and she never picked it. She ghosted me. And then a year later, Mr. Zach Lorenzen had sweat on his brow trying
had my checkbook ready.
Yeah, your checkbook ready. And I was like, let's look at it. And I think that's what's great about having accountability, is right. And it is a good deal. But this time, a year later, it was $1.2 million.
Yeah.
What makes sense? Everything seems to be 30% higher. But it was a wholesaler, and then
it was a realtor.
It was another realtor trying to wholesale another realtor's deal.
A commercial broker had it, and then a realtor's pitching it out, and the realtor had more information from the seller than the broker had that's had the listing for over a year, and then the information they both had was
not even accurate.
And
I think the funny thing was the actual listing broker, who seemed like 80 years old on the phone, seemed like a player.
Yeah, she knew her stuff.
She knew. She's like, I've never had this before.
Area and everything.
But she could. What was interesting, she could never get finances out of this seller, but this wholesaler did.
Yeah,
and it's interesting, and this boils down to this one simple point: the seller is shady.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the club.
The wholesaler got new gas pumps remodeled, and then you talk to the commercial broker, and they're like, gas pumps haven't worked for like 3 years.
And I was just there yesterday.
And I was there yesterday showing it to another client, and I have no clue what's going on here.
Yeah. So I was nice enough to send this fine email to them. And the reason why is that I'm not the police, but I think it's just wrong. It's wrong that this person that has a real estate license running around misrepresenting another listed, and that agent, the one that had the actual listing, had no idea that this was going on to the open market. The
wholesaling realtor, or whatever you want to call them, can't say they didn't know that it was out there with another broker, because it's all over.
There's a sign outside.
It's a Crexy. It's on all that, and there's a sign,
and it's on LoopNet. I mean, come on, dude. So. Like, seriously, like, this bold wholesaler should go to jail. Like, I'm not trying to be a douche, but I'm being real. You have this kind of kahunas that you're misrepresenting the whole market. This is what hurts the integrity of the commercial real estate in general. I mean, of course, it's easy for me to preach on the side, But I have been on the negative side of this more than once, and it really just burns me. That's why I don't have a real estate license. That's why I'm not a big fan of realtors. No disrespect. It's just, and even when I connect with a broker to these days, I'm still apprehensive because I'm like, man, is he going to sell me out? I had a broker sell me out one time. This is just, I don't even know. I don't want to be talking about this anymore. You got me fired up, dude. You got me fired up. Time's up. Anyway, hey, our next thing that we got going on is in 2 weeks, party people, April 19th, 11:30. Bring your own lunch. And we're going to get down and talk about how to create more wealth while paying less in taxes. I have never scribbled in a book more than I have in a long time. It's easy read.
Super easy.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, I'm like on page 50 already, and I feel like I just sat down.
You want a highlighter and a pen for sure. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, and just, I was going to put a quote today, but I'm like selling this dude's book. Well, maybe I should. Damn. Anyway, if you can't afford the book, I don't know. Go sell me your ass. I don't know. But it's April 19th, Oklahoma City. If you're not, you'll see it somewhere. The Zoom link and the password, blah, blah, blah.
Check our socials for the announcement.
Check our socials. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing, just want to be on the show, or, hey, man, we're loose and fast, and we're growing. And
ride mountain bikes, hang out.
Yeah, if you want to run a mountain bike, I don't know. Anyway. Oh, Zach Attack.
Oh, geez.
Thanks for listening to the AIA podcast. Stay motivated by listening to our other powerful episodes at AdvancedInvestorAlliance.com.